Hey Reading Lab kids, it's Mrs. Watts here saying hello from home. Hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you guys are keeping up with your studies and your reading. That's important. Just wanted to check in with everybody and tell you all that we miss you. I miss you. All the teachers miss you. I hope that you're having fun though with your families and your siblings and taking care of your pets and all that fun stuff. I jumped on here today just so that I could say hi and check in, and I'm going to share a little bit about my reading. I've been reading a lot since we've been home, but I wanted to share with you my favorite books. I know you can't read the title of it, but this is called Anne of Green Gables, and the second book is Anne of Avonlea. And the third book is Anne of the Island. And these books right here are what started me becoming a reader, a lover of reading. Anyhow, I have a whole stack of books here that I'm going to try to share with you guys eventually. Not all of them today, but hopefully tomorrow, the day after, I'll read some of these stories. And they are written by Beatrix Potter. And the first one that I'm going to read is The Tale of Peter Rabbit. I'm sure a lot of you have heard it, and a lot of you probably haven't. So let's get started. Let me get my glasses here because you guys know I can't read without my glasses. There we go. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. There they are. Now, my dears, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. There she is, talking to her kids. Now, run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out. Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. So there's the mama talking to her kids, and off she goes with her basket. And there's the good little bunnies, the brothers and sisters. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. There he is. First, he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? There he is. Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and he ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. There he is. He's stuck. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. There they are, the little birds talking to Peter. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wiggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. And there's the sieve. A sieve is kind of like what your mom might use to drain the water out of noodles when she cooks you noodles or pasta. And, whoop, I skipped a page. Let's go back. No, I'm in the right spot. Okay. And rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. Kerchoo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. And these pages. And tried to push his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea of which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. I think Peter's lost. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she couldn't answer. She only shook her head at him, and Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still. But now and then, the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe, scratch, 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 scratch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter didn't care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside of the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten away the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him until he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. There she is, wondering. That Peter. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. That's it. So, I hope you enjoyed this story. Beatrix Potter, her books and little stories are some of my favorites. So if you get a chance, read some more of those on your own. And if you don't get a chance, read whatever you have at home. And I know that I was watching somewhere on, if you have cable, they're doing readings where they're narrating stories. And you can just listen along while someone reads to you. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I'm trying to think. There was one other thing I was going to share with you guys, but I can't remember. So maybe I'll remember tomorrow. And for now, I'm signing off. And hopefully I will get to see you guys all soon, and it won't be too long. Stay safe and stay well.